We pray for patience and understanding from those we serve. May they seek out facts and truth versus opinions of others. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
You'll all join me, stand up and lift the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And is there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for discussion items tonight,
Yes, sir.
I would like to address our before the email that we got today about the water adjustments.
Okay, and that will be under item 8.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ray. And
Mr. Gooch, I have one more.
yes,
Also under discussion, I would like to discuss the allocation policy. Mr. Guasa.
okay, and that will also be under item 8. Is there any other adjustments? If not, call for a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Did anyone send any public comments?
We have the next item, sir, the review and approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. Yes. Trust that everyone's had a chance to read over the minutes. And anyone have a motion? Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Opposed? Motion passes. And now public comments. Did we get any by email? Public comments?
I received no public comments for this evening's board meeting officially. The board did receive an email this afternoon from one of our utility customers. That has not been entered officially as a comments for this evening unless the board chair would like me to enter those comments for our meeting this evening. I see it as a topic.
If it was just an email to the board members, then I believe we don't, it wasn't in the format of a public comment.
No, it was not.
Okay.
It was in official
Then
forms today.
everyone's read the email, I assume, so we all understand, know and understand. Okay, so we'll now for item 8, board discussion items, and we have a couple items that have been added. Mr. Way, you added the first item, so if you will.
So in reference to the email that was sent out this evening or earlier today about the adjustments for a member with our water and sewer system. As I've read the email and the concern that the member has, and I also, being a member of the system and use it with a family of 5, I can definitely feel the pain of having something like this happen. I understand that we have a certain criteria or list that we have that's already in place. My question is, can this list be changed to where we can give the stakeholder in the system the adjustment at one time based on previous usage of the water and sewer system? And to further explain that is if the water and sewer always this going along for the last previous 8 months, there's a big jump. and they catch it on the bill and they want to come to it and put in the proper paperwork and go through the situation? Is it something that we can say, okay, we see the situation, you've acknowledged the situation, we can adjust it? That makes sense?
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just to make a comment. So just to frame this for board and the public, we have a leak adjustment policy and procedure for when customers have leaks. And we received information, the board received information today about a customer who had a leak from their hose on the outside of their home. Could have been broken for who knows how long, or the cold weather may have caused the snap. And it resulted in a very large water usage. And we do have charges for water and sewer for consumption, if you will, that goes through the meter onto the property. We still produce that water. There's a cost for that, as you're all well aware of. And there are some situations where customers do have leaks, and we do make those adjustments. When the customer came to our office and asked for an adjustment, we asked what had occurred, and the customer told us that the water hose had been left on or broken, so on and so forth. And we said, I'm sorry, but that does not fall within our guidelines for any adjustments that we make under our current policy. The customer wasn't happy about it, but that is our current policy where we stand today. Richard Ballmer, our finance director, manages the customer service team, and also he and I administer the leak program and the policy. I would just ask Richard, is there anything that you would like to add to that at this point?
No, that's pretty much what occurred.
Okay, so we worked with the customer today, and I think that we were setting up a payment plan possibly for the customer. Is that correct?
The customer did contact us this afternoon about a possible payment plan. We didn't contact her back yet. And then any discussion the board had tonight.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So I spoke to the customer this morning also, and understand that she was told payment plans we don't set payment plans up for under $1,000. In this economic situation that is on this country right now, I don't believe that that's fair. I know that if my water bill was running $150 a month, and that's what I budgeted for, and I got a $600 water bill, I would beg for a payment plan. There's no way I could pay that up front. But she also said that she was willing to pay the water part because she took ownership of that. But the sewer wasn't processed. This water went into the ground. It wasn't processed. And I think that if we rolled back the sewer bill to whatever her normal sewer average for 6 months, 8 months, what her sewer usage was, that would be fair. She also had to drive to Walmart, buy a new Y splitter, bring back the receipt, because that's what she was told at the customer service window. She was also told at the customer service window, you can appeal it, but the commissioners will tell you no. That got my Irish up. Nobody speaks for this board except us. So I'd like that addressed some way, clarified. Let's go with clarified. But like I said, that's sewer water. And I did check the records when Creedmoor owned the water system. And we had a situation like this at that time. And they said the same thing. The sewer water, the sewer charge, that water wasn't processed. It didn't go to the wastewater plant or our system. So all she's asking for at this point was to roll back the sewer charges. She paid the water bill today, is what I was told. She came in and paid it, plus a past due amount, plus past due charge. But she was told that she couldn't have a payment plan unless it was over $1,000. And I guess the finance committee is going to have to take that up, because I think $1,000, like I said, if my water bill averages $150 a month and I get a $600 bill, I'm going to be asking for a payment plan. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, Commissioner, with all due respect, I've reached out to this customer as well 2 or 3 times, and she's never contacted me about this issue. So I'm just a little bit outside the loop here as far as the conversations.
She
and
gave me the name of the person.
and what she's doing. Of course, we'll follow up on that. So I'd like to listen to other board members' comments if they have it before I weigh in.
Anyone?
I guess the comment I made earlier, and I kind of understand the way Robert brought it up. But if a plumber's not involved, how do we know that the sewer did not get that water? Usually, this has been brought up, I guess I've been on this board several years now. Before, if a plumber's brought into this and says what the issue was, then we can understand exactly what happened or what transpired. But when a plumber is not involved, we have no idea whether that truly didn't, that happened, or did something else happen? And the water was left on inside the house, and it did go through the sewer system.
So we're saying we don't believe our customers.
I'm not saying that. We don't know what happened, because 10 people could come in here tomorrow and say the same thing happened to them.
I understand.
So if a plumber's involved, we know exactly what happened.
That's the reason we came up with a policy so that we would be treating each person fair and not have to have one-off situations each time.
And I understand that, but in this case, the water spigot outside got left on. So how would you get a plumber involved in that? It happened to me. My water spigot got left on and it dumped water in the yard. I'm still waiting to see what my bill is going to be this month. I hadn't looked yet. But I mean, I can understand if it's something letting inside the house where you're going to get a plumber involved, but if it was something on the outside such as this, it's not going to be that way. Like I said, I'm new to this aspect of it. But as a customer, I would want a little bit more compassion and a little bit more customer service if something like this was to happen to me, because I would be shocked to receive a $600 water bill.
Yeah.
And if I came as a customer back to the organization and said, you know, I've been a customer this many years, and if you look at my history, this is not normal for my water bill. It would be something that I would want the utility company to say, you're absolutely right. And if you're going to be forefront and say, this is what happened, you've not created a pattern of coming up here saying, oh, it happened again, you won't believe it. And I understand the one adjustment a year for the 12-month period. That's all I'm saying is if we have a customer that truly comes up here and presents themselves and says something like this happened, then we should be able to give them the one adjustment a year or something like that. Because there's no way for a plumber to say, yeah, she left her water hose. And that, I mean, that's my, I mean, things happen.
Oh, yeah.
We have water mains break all the time around here. All that water goes out.
I mean, I've left my hose on for a day.
Yeah, I mean,
Trust me, I know.
it happens. And that's my only thoughts with the process. And that's all I wanted to make sure that I was understanding, because I would want the same, I would want somebody up here going to bat for me for the same reasons.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Scott, what was the water usage? Do we have that?
In terms of gallons, I'm not sure if I have that. I'm looking at Richard. Do we have that?
Have that, is it appropriate to discuss that in the meeting now that it's been brought up as a topic, since it is? a
We haven't mentioned any
customer?
names. We might just,
Usage, is it allowable to discuss that in open session about a specific customer?
We didn't say a name yet.
It's not in any record that we've got.
Right.
The usage was 28,407.
And what is that customer's normal usage?
Let's discuss this further.
Okay.
Get into all that.
Okay.
I feel for the lady. It would be a hardship for me if this did happen. But we have to be very careful setting a precedent what we do in this situation. If we do bend the rules, I think we should make new rules didn't follow those.
Yeah.
But I am for helping her out, payment plan or reducing. That's a humanitarian in me, I guess. But if we do need to have a policy to reflect these problems.
Mr. Troy, these rules were in place when you came here, is that correct?
I believe the outline was, yes, I'm not sure. Richard, again, I'm going to lean on him from his
Yeah.
experience here with the organization.
Hey, Richard, when these rules were put in place, this isn't something we dreamed up. This is something there's a basis for this rule.
If I may, Mr. Chair. So my understanding when I came on board in 2007 is, and Jim can elaborate on this because he's been here, I think, back in those days. But the internal standard operating procedure that you're seeing excerpts on here was based off of the board approved water rules at that time. And those rules were revised, I believe, as recently as May of 2016.
Okay,
And it addresses, there's a section in there where the board said we want to be compassionate to customers. And it was, from my interpretation, and previous directors, and Scott and I have discussed this, and previous finance committees have discussed this, previous board discussions. My understanding of those rules was it was designed to be a catastrophic water loss event, is the way it's worded in there.
Mhm.
And they go on to say, the water rules go on to say that it has to be a repair, a plumber's repair, or a repair with a receipt if the person is qualified to make the minor repair themselves. It was designed to be underground water lines, under house water pipes, that sort of thing. It's over the years been expanded a little bit to be water heaters at first, of that things, but no previous finance committees or board discussions have expanded it to the point that they wanted it to be external attachments to the home. It had to be a permanent fixture to the home. So that's where the water hoses, and we've had, if some board members that have been on the board from back in 2016, 2017, we had a rash of people that had run specific piping above ground, pins and watering troughs and water hoses. And we had a rash of them that year. And I think it was addressed by the board and the finance committee in a couple of meetings. And it didn't get expanded to these external, because that fell under the, my understanding is that fell under the carelessness, negligent, avoidable event clause within the water rules. That's my understanding of how this is all migrated on.
So our rules reflect updates to the water rules that you're referring to.
That's correct. But the water rules do not specifically stipulate that it doesn't allow water. But it was the interpretation, my understanding of previous boards and previous finance committees, that because of the other wording in there, that you should not have attachments to your system that are temporary in nature, and leaving a water hose attached during the winter could be avoidable. And that's my understanding of how these have been carved out over the years as not allowed for the leak adjustments.
Okay. So since our rules were in line with, where did you reference these water rules from?
I think the most recent version was amended by the board in May of 2016. And at that time, one of the amendments was that if it's an underground water line, and that loss event, that water usage event covers 2 bill cycles. Because several customers had come with these types of adjustment requests. And one of the complaints at that time was that sometimes you didn't know it until the bill came out, and by then you were in another bill cycle. So 2 months should be allowed for underground water line breaks on someone's property. And the board amended it, I believe, in May of 2016 to expand the leak adjustment to say if it's a major underground event and it covers 2 bill cycles, you can have 2 adjustments for that one event within 1 year.
Okay, so the rules that we base our rules on, they haven't been updated in the last several years, have they?
That's 2016, sir.
So we're current with I guess you call it the industry standard.
This is fairly standard. We've researched it back in 2016, 2017, before we brought those amendments to the finance committee and the board. And ours is pretty standard. Now, to Mr. Way's point, there are some smaller systems that allow what they call an honor adjustment once a year, whereby any event, a power washing, a yard watering, those types of things are allowed. There are some systems that do that, but very few.
And to get back to your point about Creedmoor allowed those adjustments. At the time Creedmoor ran their system, they were a water and sewer customer. So they didn't technically pay for the sewer end of it if it didn't go through the line from Joe P. Road over to Butner. So that's why they could make that adjustment with the sewer, because it, technically that, from what I understand, back then Creedmoor's sewer usage or the amount of sewer they pumped to Butner, it was monitored at the Joe P. Road pump station. The amount that was pumped from there through the line over to Butner.
Chair, I can't recall if we billed on a separate water sewer meter back then for Creedmoor. I would have to go back and look to confirm that. That's been a while ago. I don't recall exactly. I would swear to that.
The reason I was thinking along those lines is Creedmoor was a sewer customer first before they became a water customer. And later on, they were, Seguasa bought the Creedmoor system and made it part of the entire South Granville Water and Sewer Authority.
Right. But I'm not sure at that time if we didn't
They-
switch to using the 1 meter to bill water sewer, just like we do a residential. customer.
Okay,
I don't recall enough about that to
yeah,
to speak to it tonight.
okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Anyone else want to? I feel this is a matter that needs to be referred to the Finance Committee and be examined at that level. I
So,
don't-
so can I ask if the customer is going to get a payment plan or not? Can I ask that question? You had reached out to her about it.
Two of the things you said earlier, I will address with my team tomorrow because they are not our normal response, so I will research this. The first is that they can take it to the board, but the board's gonna say no. I'm gonna be very surprised and unpleasantly so, and we'll address it. If that were said, because we always tell them that you're welcome to take a policy waiver to the board or a policy suggestion for change to the board. It is not our history to say they're going to tell you no. I will address that tomorrow and find out if that statement was made. We always recommend that if they really are unhappy with the policy and they've already addressed it with the director or I, the next step is the board. The second is the payment plan. We do not have a $1,000. We basically look, like you said, at what is your average and what percentage higher is this bill. And we would typically consider a 3-month payment plan for this.
Right.
What we've run into in the past year with payment plans is that the problem becomes if you take that bill and you split it into 3 or 4 payments, and then they're still getting more bills that they may have some financial difficulty in paying the current bill. So our payment plans say you have to keep your current bills paid up, plus you make a payment on this old bill in installments.
I explained that to her today from our experience through COVID. I told her that's probably the way it would work if we could get it done.
And she contacted my team. I asked them to update me on any changes to the account. She contacted my team, I believe roughly 3 o'clock this afternoon, and they reached out to me and said, should we, if this is going to be a consideration for the board tonight, should we call her back today? And I said, no, because if the board decides to make any kind of changes to the account, then we're making a payment plan on about change before tomorrow morning. So let's wait until in the morning and call her back and discuss payment plan options. So yes, we will. And answer, short answer is yes, we would consider that if the board is not going to make any adjustment to the balance fee. But I will address those with my team in the morning. We already have that on the calendar.
I appreciate it.
Okay, any further discussion on this topic?
So, Mr. Chair, just to be clear that you want to send this topic to the Finance Committee, is that correct?
I'm good with it. I think the Finance Committee needs to review this and see if there's any adjustment that needs to be made, or if we want to stay with what we have right now. It's just for consideration.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I feel we need to make a decision on this tonight. That's why he said we'll discuss this in closed session tonight. And then the if we want to make any changes, we'll go to the finance committee.
Okay,
Okay,
That's what I think should happen.
closed session is good.
all right.
Yeah.
Then that's what we'll do.
Yeah, closed session.
Now, the next item for discussion. The Vice Chair Kaczynski.
Okay, so I know that I have asked Scott this question numerous times. He's probably sick of hearing it because I keep asking. When I read this document through that he sent to us, and I appreciate you sending that to us because it was enlightening. We have a I have a situation where I have a developer who applied for an allocation back in 2017. And I know that the first shovel hasn't hit the ground yet. So I'm wondering, how long is their allocation good for? Because it says until a specified date. Is a date certain put on the document when they get their allocation?
Commissioner, I can speak to allocations that I've addressed since my tenure here, recognize that there would be situations if you didn't put some confirming dates on these, that you may have some problems. Because of our experience, we saw some allocations that were approved in 2009 and 2010 that had extensions all the way through 2021.
Wow.
So, and we've brought those issues to the board. So with the assistance of our engineer, Mark Hamlet, he and I look at these projects and we establish some goal dates basically for preliminary and final on this so that we have that guidance so that we can adjust that along the way. Maybe in particular to an item that you're talking about, I'm not quite sure specifically if there are dates on that specific as far as qualifiers, but I did highlight for you throughout the document that I sent to you via email, just some notes in the side margin to say, here's some language that says specified time, those type of things. But there is nothing in this document at this time that says if this, then this time frame, if this, then this time frame, those type of qualifiers. And as I've talked to the board with, or presented to the board with my project updates on a monthly basis for about the last 6 or 7 months, Mark and I are looking at this allocation policy because it does need to be updated. And this is just one more thing that we would add some type of logical scale in here so that we can work with our community and our development community on realistic timeframes, but not get ourselves in a situation where we've extended ourselves with so much water and sewer allocation that because we're holding on for so long, it's preventing possibly someone else from getting an allocation to move forward on a project. So Mark and I have had a lot of discussion with that, reached out to other utilities to talk about their allocation policies. The other entities haven't been that helpful yet because we're all kind of looking at the same thing, but we are looking at that to address that.
And that's exactly the reason I'm asking. I'm just, the 100,000 gallons per day in here per municipality, that was information I'd never known before. And when you think about possibly giving allocation to 2 or 3 developers and they don't do any developing, that allocation is sitting there. And I've got the 3rd developer out here who wants to do it, but there's no more allocation left because these 2, it feels like it's being held hostage. So that's why I was asking, just, is there a way to do this? Do we have a deadline? Is there when it said specified date, where is this? What is the specified date? Is it on each contract and it depends on the project? Or is it just language that's in here and doesn't really mean much?
Well, I think that from what I can say, again, the items that we've looked at and brought to the board for approval, we've established the timeframes for those. Specific projects, maybe one that you're referring to, maybe does not have that kind of qualifier on it. So it just continues to have an extension with no deadlines. But of course, that's something we can revisit. Keep in mind as well in the allocation policy that you have money being exchanged as well. You have preliminary of a 10%, and then you have a final due for that as well. So in some cases, you may have a situation where a developer, let's use that example, has paid the preliminary but not the final, and has still had this out there for 5 years or so. The preliminary is non-refundable. You may have other situations where the developer's paid 100% everything in full, including the final allocation. Then that's a situation we have to look at, okay, you've paid this, what are you doing with this? How are you moving forward? I mean, that's something that we would have to look at as well. So there's a couple nuances in terms of special projects we'd want to look at in that regard. I'll also throw out that there's opportunities in here with the board's approval where developers can actually transfer allocations. So that's a topic in here as well. It's not completely off the books. It's within the policy as far as board consideration and approval. So I'm not sure that we've seen that yet, but that may be a topic on the near-term horizon as well that we may have to address.
Thank you.
And I think we do need to go back and address this because section 2, the designated allocation for each participating political subdivision,
Yeah.
it gives 100,000 gallons per day jurisdictional allocation. Now, the way Lindsay Mize explained that to me years ago, and we got some board members here probably know more about this than me, but the way he explained it was that was kind of like their discretionary fund. They could go ahead and you get all your permits and all in place. They could actually issue a preliminary allocation. Once everything was finalized, that allocation became part of Saguasa, and whatever that was taken went back. So each jurisdiction always had 100,000 gallons at their disposal. But over the years, we found out that we can't do that. We don't have the allocation within the lines from Creedmoor to Butner and some of the areas here in Butner, the pump stations, we don't have that kind of allocation available. So this section of it needs to be updated and addressed because, if we were following the gist of this, Butner would have 100,000 gallons for everything the other side of the interstate. Creedmoor would have 100,000 gallons for anything the other side of the interstate. And, we just don't have that. We can't get it across the interstate. And even with the I-85 project, I don't see where we can update those lines to a position that we can have a perpetual 100,000 gallon per day allocation for Creedmoor or Butner or anybody that's got sewer on the east side of I-85.
And that's what I was wondering, because the population of Creedmoor versus the population in the industry in Butner, I'm like, they can't possibly be the same.
Mm-mm.
So STEM had the same problem with a developer that wanted to keep going out and going out and going out. So we ended up putting a sunset on everything with that developer.
Okay.
So, and then everybody that comes to us now, we have a sunset on everything. This is where it stops.
And that's a STEM ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
That's that's something that we probably need to discuss with attorney and administration, and we need to readdress these rules and regulations we have and update them, because I just don't see there ever being a sustainable 100,000 gallon, perpetual 100,000 gallon per day capacity for anybody east, especially east of I-85. Even with the upgrades that we're doing, the replacing the infrastructure there. So it's Saguasa was never, this shows that Saguasa was set up to meet the needs of the stakeholders. It wasn't set up to push development in any direction or promote development. It was set up to react to and supply the needs of the municipalities
I
in
also
the county.
also believe that was put in place so that no one entity could do a ginormous, 500,000 gallon day, whatever, and take all. of it.
Yeah, take all of the capacity.
Don't forget in 2010, before the stock market or the real estate market crashed, things were looking rosy.
Really good. And then they went
There
real
was a
bad,
gateway
real quick.
project I think I remember hearing about once.
What was that?
There was a gateway project I remember hearing about.
And we're still working on that, aren't we?
Here in the Gateway project, I think.
It's coming, I believe.
Any further discussion on this item?
No, sir.
If not, we're going to move on to item 9, which is election of board officers, our annual election. And with that, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to our attorney, Jim Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first off is our nominations for chairman. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I'd like to nominate Jimmy Gooch as the chairman.
Is there any further nominations?
I move that Nominations be closed.
Is there a second to the motion that nominations be closed? There's a motion by Mr. Karen and a second by Mr. McKellar. All in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Is there a second to the, let's see. We never can get straight whether we need a second for that one or not. I'm going to ask one. Is there a second for the motion to nominate Mr. Gooch? Okay. All right, that was Mr. Wade. All right, now all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, your chair again, please take over.
Thank you.
Well, you got out of that quick.
Yeah, I don't feel bad about butchering the next one then. Okay, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice chair. Anyone like to make a nomination for anyone?
I nominate Mr. Kaczynski to continue
Okay.
as vice chair.
All right, have a nomination for Georgiana Kaczynski for vice chair. Is there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, to save time, can we ask for a full slate of secretary and treasurer to go along with that and name the entire slate?
If our attorney approves that,
I don't have any objection.
okay,
I'd like to amend Mr. Wade's motion to retain Georgiana Kaczynski as our vice chair to include the full slate of secretary and treasurer.
Second.
Are they the same position, same people?
Same people.
Yeah, thank you.
in other words, keep
The same people.
everybody in place.
Yes.
Okay.
And Director Schroyer.
Good. Motion to
Yeah,
close.
we did
Motion
second.
to close. Got a second? Motion to close. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. The rest of the slate remains the same.
Reading it said it.
Okay. So we've kind of, we've,
Did you actually vote on the, I heard the motion to close, but I didn't hear the motion to actually elect.
Yeah, that's right. we
yeah.
didn't do-
Okay. All those in favor of electing the slate, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think we got that taken care of. And now for our fiscal year 21-22 second quarter and year-end date financial review presentation.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'll have Richard Ballmer, our Finance Director and Board Treasurer, come forward and do his presentation to the board. Richard?
Good afternoon. Pleasure to present you with the second quarter, which ended 12/31/21. Luckily, you'll see as we go through that everything's on target and there's no really exceptional things that's going to jump out at us, which is always a good thing for a finance director to say. We started these quarterly financial presentations, I believe, last year, and we're going to continue through this year. In the agenda you have that we've already presented you quarter one in the November meeting, quarter two tonight. Quarter three will be presented in the May meeting, and of course, there's no quarter four because we'll be presenting audited financial statements for the full year. Just a quick synopsis, the cumulative billing revenue and fee revenue, when we go through, you'll see that for the quarter, they're trending with expectations and are basically comparable to budget. Departmental expenses, the same thing. You'll see that they're on track according to budget. There are a few exceptions we'll talk about, which were pretty much covered in the first quarter. And as you know, from the first quarter, chemical costs are increasing, and we're getting them daily that they're continuing to increase. We got one as early as today that's pretty much double what it was 4 months ago. We'll continue to monitor the financial activities for the remainder of the fiscal year. So first slide. We'll be covering the revenues. And then in section 2, of course, we'll cover the expenses by department. So the first slide is water revenue. You'll see that the budget for water revenue is 5.3 million. We're hoping to be at 50% or higher. You'll see this quarter and the first quarter together are 2.8 million, which puts us at 54% of water revenue, right on target for where we want to be. Next slide. Sewer revenue, same thing. You'll see we've budgeted 8.05 million. To date with the 2 quarters, 4.2 million, which is 52%. Again, right on target for where we would hope to be with budget. There are no anomalies in those revenues that we can see. Things kind of staying consistent. Next slide, the non-billing revenue. You'll see that the budget for non-billing revenue and non-billing revenue, as a reminder, are those things such as service fees, late fees, disconnection fees, return check fees, mostly fee related. The budget is 217,000. You'll see to date we're at 140,000, which is 65% of budget. Interest income is the next slide. Interest income, as you can see, that's a pretty easy one to look at because it's almost non-existent. We knew that was coming. We talked about that in previous meetings and in the budget passing of last year. You'll see the budget was 0 because we knew it was going to be materially 0. And to date, we've got $864 in interest income. Even with the interest rates projected for the remainder of this fiscal year, we don't see a material impact on that revenue stream. System development fees, as you know, are budgeted at 0 because the board has to, by resolution, appoint those to a specific capital project. So we always budget 0. You'll see to date, we have 49,753. You will get a resolution later in the fiscal year once we have a true handle on the full year's revenue stream to designate those for a capital project. And that pretty much finishes the revenue section. Next slide is fund balance. That's a synopsis of the board approved budget amendments for the year to date. You'll see that we started off the budget ordinance with $218,543 expected to be used from fund balance. If you recall, that was the 10% depreciation that the board chose not to fund in the budget. We had a budget amendment 1, which was 6.2 million, but that was rolling forward all of the capital projects, including the water treatment plant. So that's not of a major concern. You'll see budget amendment 2 was 150,000 for a hydraulic water model. Budget amendment 3, we basically had a 0 net impact on fund balance. BA 4 was 58,000, and it was for a couple of fairly large repairs at the wastewater treatment plant. And BA 5, I believe, was last month. You approved 129,120 for telemetry equipment, or actually, I believe that was in December. So to date, we have a fund balance appropriation for this fiscal year of 6.8 million, of which 6.2 million was for capital projects already encumbered in the prior year. Any questions on the revenue or fund balance? Next slide, we'll start into the expenses. First department is the administration department. As a reminder, the administration department is basically just the executive director, utilities director, and finance director, and such expenses as certain software costs that run the whole organization. The budget is 115,311. You'll see that we've expended 39,250 to date, so we've only expended 34%. Now that we're entering in expenses, just a reminder that you want to be 50% or less. You don't want to be 50% or more at this point in the year. So we're well within budget there. Next slide is the Human Resources Department. I'm sorry, I think I jumped from admin to human resources.
You got it.
So back to admin, it was 773,085 was budget. We've expended 337,677 or 44%. Then we just covered human resources, 115,311. We've spent 39,250, 34%. Engineering's next slide. Budget is 254,679. To date, we've expended 92,143 or 36%. Next slide is expense billing and collections. $434,603 is the budget. We've expended $219,909, which is 51%. That 51% is not alarming because there's two major categories in there that are paid at the beginning of the year that you won't have the rest of the year. One of them being a annual software renewal for all the billing and collection software, which doesn't occur again. It's paid up front July 1st. The second was, as you'll recall, we had 3 months of billing and collection fees for credit cards before the board had the enacted convenience fee passed on to the customer. So that was a large expense that went away October 1st. So 51% is not a lot. Next slide. That's the water treatment plant and the raw water department. Budget is 1.8 million, 1,880,341. You'll see to date we've expended 705,158 or 38%. Next slide is wastewater treatment. The budget is 1,938,288. You'll see we've expended to date 772,909, 40%. The next slide is the utility maintenance department. And a reminder, utility maintenance includes water line maintenance, sewer line maintenance, meter reading, and all the pump stations and towers. The budget is 2,509,391. To date, we've expended 996,294, or 40%. The next slide is depreciation, board, and other. The largest chunk, you'll see that the budget is 2,428,292, of which 2.2 million is depreciation expense. To date, we've expended 1,241,024, or 51%. Again, a reminder that this department, we pay our workers' comp and property and liability insurances 7/1, so they were paid July 1st. That's a huge expenditure that will be seen the rest of the year. So the 51% again is to be expected. The next slide. This is the projects and studies department. The major project in there right now, of course, is the water treatment plant upgrade. You'll see the budget is 6,195,448. To date, we've expended 4,020,272, or 65%. The next slide is the debt service department. The budget is 3,853,135. You'll see we've only expended 658,581, which is 17%. This is kind of the opposite of the other two where I told you we prepay things up front. Most of our debt service comes due in May and June. So you would expect it to be very low because almost all the large payments to DEQ or USDA come in May and June. So that concludes all of the departments. Just as a quick summary, as we saw then, the cumulative billing revenue and fee revenue for the quarter and for the year are trending with expectations are materially comparable to budget. The departmental expenses overall are materially comparable to budget and expectations. We talked about in the first quarter and at the end of last year and a couple of quarters that we are seeing some large repairs and maintenance, as you saw in that fund balance budget amendment slide. And we are having some overtime expenses that are going to probably come in a later budget amendment. And of course, chemical costs, as we just said, are continuing to rise, and we don't see that trend reversing before the end of the fiscal year. We're expecting, unfortunately, that to get worse and may require future budgeting. And at that point, I'll open up to any questions the board may have.
Any questions? Richard, you may not, this may be out of your department, but we haven't, so far as regular supply, chemicals and such, we have any supply chain issues?
On the chemicals, I do know that we're having some slight delivery issues, but moreover, what I'm seeing is on the supplies themselves, they're sometimes having to go to vendors that we've never used before, or they're having to split orders into this vendor has this product and this vendor over here still has this product. So they may have an order that they would have normally used one vendor. Now they're splitting into 3 POs. So I am seeing that. And of course, all the supplies, as you can imagine, just like with everything else in the economy right now, are running much higher than previous years.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right,
Just a comment. Thank you. Great report.
And with that, we'll move on to item 11, wastewater treatment plant remote terminal units upgrade and purchase of equipment and services from Fortec Incorporated. Mr. Soroya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to talk about the background of this project. In our approved budget for this fiscal year, we have $50,000 dedicated to the upgrade of the remote terminal units, number 4, 5, and 6, in our wastewater treatment plant. And basically, the RTUs are electronic devices that interface between some of our mechanical equipment and then transmit the signal to electronic equipment and actually provide the information to our SCADA system. So we have the ability to actually use that equipment and turn the equipment on and off through those electrical signals with our SCADA system. So our project includes updates to the malfunctioning RTUs. And we work with our sole source vendor, Fortec, to put together a solution for us, basically for this product to get these back into operation. And basically, we're looking at reusing some existing enclosures, which are basically containers for some of this equipment. And you can see in the memo in front of you that we have some PLCs that we're upgrading, some surge protection, and some programming with our SCADA systems. And just wanted to point out that the new RTU panels and components will enhance the wastewater treatment operations for at least 10+ years, which I think is important here. So this is a good expense to get this technology up to speed. Staff anticipates this work will be completed within 90 days following board approval, excluding any supply-related delays. Mr. Chair, there's your answer right there. We are having some issues with some of our supply.
That's what I was afraid of.
As I mentioned previously, our budget includes $50,000 for this upgrade project. And staff is requesting to spend $49,561, just under our approved budget for this, which is a base cost of $43,000, plus 15% contingency of $6,000 on the purchase and installation of the proposed RTU upgrades. I want to mention to you further down in the memo, I'll just put this on screen for a moment. Something new you may have noticed on the legislative memos. Beneath the attachments, we've now included the strategic plan alignment column for you as well. The board obviously approved the strategic plan and we developed 4 focus areas. And this project relates to focus area number 2, the reliable and sustainable sanitary sewer system. And you can see our objective 1 is provide for upgrades and ongoing maintenance of the sewer system infrastructure through regular assessments of capital assets and inclusion of needed projects in our CIP. So I just want to point that out. That's a new item for us, and you'll see that across our legislative memos for the board so that we can track those items. So the recommendation I have for the board is to approve the purchase and installation of the remote terminal units number 4, 5, and 6, all associated components and programming for Fortec Incorporated, not to exceed amount of $49,561, including local and state taxes. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have, Mr. Chair.
Anyone have any questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion passes. Thank you. And now on to item 12, water treatment plant air scour blower and motor replacement project, purchase of equipment and services from A&W Electric Incorporated. Mr. Stroya?
Mr. Chair, once again, our fiscal year approved budget includes $41,000 for the replacement of the air scour blower motor number 1 in our water treatment facility. Air scour blowers are used during the filter backwashing process to remove deposits and maintain efficient operation of their pressure filters. The water treatment plant has 2 air scour blower motors on site. The board may recall that the air scour blower motor number 2 was replaced last fiscal year at a cost of $36,000. And we're looking at air scour blower motor number 1 to replace and upgrade this year. And number 1 has been in service for 18 years. In terms of our analysis, the air scour blower motors were both inspected and to determine the repair replacement costs. Basically, what we found in terms of the replacement, that the cost to purchase 2 new air scour blower motors was beyond our funding at the time. So we decided to purchase and install 1 motor last year and then schedule the 2nd unit for replacement in this current fiscal year. And that's what we're talking about this evening. In terms of our procurement process, informal bidding procurement methods are permissible for purchases with estimated expenditures between $30,000 and $90,000. Ross's policy requires 3 competitive quotes on vendor letterhead or other acceptable written forms. The staff solicited informal bids from several companies for the purchase and installation of the one new air scour blower motor. The following companies provided written proposals on their company letterhead. You'll see that we had proposals from A&W Electric Incorporated of Charlotte, North Carolina, Electric Motor Shop of Wake Forest, North Carolina, and we did receive a no bid from Rocky Mountain Electric Motor, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, that they just could not actually provide the work to us at this point. Appreciated being notified, but they simply could not offer us a bid. So we looked at this project and recognized that we had two qualified bidders on this project. You can see from their prices proposed that they're very competitive, especially in relationship to what we paid last year, which is pretty good. And then based on our written proposals, the Quasta staff recommends the purchase and installation of one new air scour blower motor from A&W Electric Incorporated. Again, our budget includes $41,000 for the replacement of this unit. Staff is requesting to spend $41,000 even, which is the base cost of $37,236 plus a 10% contingency, $3,764 on this air scour blower motor. In terms of our strategic plan alignment, this aligns with focus area number 1, safe, reliable, and sustainable water system. And our objective number 2, providing for upgrades and ongoing maintenance of the water system. The recommendation is that the board approve the purchase and installation of one new air scour blower motor from A&W Electric Incorporated, with a not to exceed amount of $41,000 even, excluding local state sales taxes. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Is there any questions? Vice Chair Kaczynski. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
So, Mr. Executive Director, the first one was replaced by A&W for 36,000. So we didn't need to use any of the contingency from last year on that one.
That is correct.
Great. Wonderful.
You already answered my question when you asked.
I'm sorry.
She read my mind.
Same one.
That was your
That was
question?
my question.
Okay. Well, we got everybody on the same page
We're
here.
all paying attention. That's for good.
Yes. Yes, that's very, very good.
I make a motion that we approve the executive director's recommendation.
I have a motion to approve. We have a second. Second, any discussion on the motion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries. Now move down to item 13, project updates. Here we go. Mark, how are you tonight?
I am doing well. Hope everyone here is.
Yes.
Which one you want to start with, Mark?
Either one. Okay, so the first project update is for the water treatment plant project, which let's hope this is the next to last one of these updates. So, next slide.
You're going to be disappointed, aren't you?
I am ready for it to be.
Yes, we are too.
So it'd be nice to get some time back. But so project summary, contract price after the approved change orders were about $13.5 million, with a notice to proceed issued of May 15th of 2020 and a final completion date with the most recent approved change order with additional weather days of the last day of this month, February 28th. Based on the February payment application, the work invoice to date is almost 96%. So next slide. So just giving a brief update of progress and what is remaining for general and site work. We basically finished everything except the landscaping and the final lift of asphalt. Both of those are weather dependent. Asphalt, you need warm temperatures to put that down for it to last. We haven't had much of that lately. And landscaping, I believe they were delivering the landscaping this week. So hopefully in the next few days, they will actually get that in the ground. For the dewatering facility, gravity thickener, chemical feed building, and bulk storage tanks, construction is complete and those are operational. We are using those right now. We have gone through all the training, operation, and maintenance, and those components are being used by our water treatment plant staff. Sludge storage tank. The only thing that we need is concrete coating. We've needed that for the last few months, but that's also weather dependent. So hopefully we'll get that done in the next week or so. Next slide. Sedimentation basins, there are 5 basins, 4 and 5 are complete. Basin 3 will be completed within the next couple of days, and the goal is to have basins 1 and 2 complete by the end of the month as you know, to meet the February 28th completion date. And the SCADA improvements, this is the last major component that we need to complete. The implementation of that is in progress. The servers are installed, and we are just trying to get all the communication between those servers and all the components of the plant, get that tied together so we can have full control from that SCADA system. Next slide. So at the last meeting, Commissioner Karen asked a question about the bulk water loading station, and I figured I would touch on both the sludge loading station and the bulk water during this. So what you see here is a picture of the pre-existing sludge loading station that was at the site prior to the construction project taking place. That was removed. You can see it's old, rusted. It was removed during initial site demolition. Next slide. And what you see here, this is the new, the piping that you see on the right side of the picture here. That is the secondary sludge loading station. That is new with the construction of this project. That's the secondary loading station. It can take sludge from the basin and bypass the dewatering system, and it can be used, or it can be loaded from that point. That we do not think that will be used much, because we anticipate using the primary sludge loading station more so. That is with the belt press, and that's where you see the dewatering building in the background with the trailer. That's where the sludge runs through the belt press, dewaters that, reduces the volume of that sludge, and it's dropped into those trailers and hauled off. So that is the sludge loading. As far as the bulk water, the picture on the picture on the left side of that, the orange piping there, that is the existing bulk water loading station. That was not upgraded with this project. So what you see there has been there for many years, and the project did not include any upgrade there. That's something that could be upgraded in the future, but it just was not included with this project. And then during the construction of this project, the bulk water was performed, or the bulk water loading was performed at the front of the water treatment plant. We did not want trucks to drive around and access the site, to this location and drive through the middle of the construction zone. So we temporarily moved that loading station to the front of the plant, and as soon as construction is complete, it will go back to this location. So hopefully that answered your questions from last time. Okay. Next slide. So at the last meeting, I also brought up a concern we had. What you see here is the rapid mixer above the flocculation basin. Picture on the right shows where a impeller blade and shaft are supposed to be connected. That shaft disconnected from the rapid mixer and fell into the flocculation basin. So we worked with our consultant. We thought at first that we would have to install I-beam support, structural support, to put a manhole access into the floor to get down into the basin to retrieve that impeller shaft and reconnect it to the blade. Worked with the manufacturer of the pump and also the contractor. We ended up inserting a camera into the basin. We're able to pinpoint the location of the blade and the shaft. We think it's still usable, and we actually think that we're able to grab that shaft through that small 10-inch opening there and pull it back up through the opening and reattach it to the rapid mixer. The manufacturer thinks that can work. So what we thought was going to be about $150,000 change order is probably going to be a couple grand. So we are not going to have to provide access to that basin at this time. So that's a very positive piece of news there. So I do not think this is going to extend the contract at all. Actually hoping to in the next few days try to get the blade reinstalled. So next slide. So with that, I did not include pictures of all the components this time. They're basically the same as we've seen. The components are complete with the exception of the few items we discussed. So I think we're pretty close to the end, and I think everyone we should schedule a site visit and go have a tour and we can look at all different components and talk about those in detail in the coming month or so. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Any questions, any comments?
Great job. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mark. And we look forward to that final presentation on
Can't wait.
It's gonna be in person.
it. We're all looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
So the next presentation is the I-85 sanitary sewer interceptor project and the other projects category update. So first is the I-85 sanitary sewer project, which I know we're all familiar with. This is just an overall view of that project, the gravity interceptor lines, pump stations, and force mains that are to be installed. This was alternate number 5, which was presented to the board at the December meeting, and we were granted permission to proceed with the development of a design fee and proposal. The project status from December to present, Seguasa has been in coordination with the USDA for responsible funding. USDA is performing a review of our finances right now to determine the viability of that funding. As an alternate source, we are talking to Division of Water Infrastructure about possible SRF funding. So we've been coordinating with them, and we're planning to make a submission for a funding application at the May 2022 deadline for that. We're trying to chase down every possible source of funding that we can. Funding allocation in the state budget, the $35 million that we were given from the state budget, that requires submission of an application to the Division of Water Infrastructure, and that application was completed and submitted. We anticipate a letter of intent to award that $35 million of ARPA funding to the I-85 project by mid-February. I expect to see that anytime. So with that letter, we look to at the March meeting to present to the board for consideration for approval of the CDM Smith scope and fee proposal for the engineering services. We are finalizing that right now. We are working with our attorney, Jim Wren, on that, trying to make sure that we're dotting all the i's, crossing all the t's, doing that correctly. So all that will be ready to present at the March meeting. So next slide.
Yeah, Mark, just a comment for the board on your item above regarding the, let's see, the SRF funds and also USDA. Some of those actions actually require board action before we submit those applications. So I just want the board to understand that our goal is to do the SRF funding application in May, and that will require some board action in possibly March or April to allow us to do that. In terms of USDA as well, there may be some qualifying language or resolutions for that at the same time. I anticipate, excuse me,
What is SRF?
excuse me?
What is SRF?
State revolving fund, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll have Mark spell that out next time in his presentation.
Sorry.
The point being is that
Do this so
as some of this starts to come into focus, I would like to advance those topics to the Finance Committee, Mr. Chair, so that we have an opportunity to talk about these different funding vehicles, have that discussion, and then bring that discussion, of course, to the board as an overview as we're moving forward. So we're happy about the application being submitted to DWI for the 35 million. Yet we have some parallel tracks here with USDA and also SRF, State Revolving Fund, that we're looking at. So we'll keep the board posted on that, those submission dates. Thank you.
Yeah, in the SRF, it provides some grant funding, which we don't qualify for on this project, but they do offer low interest loans. So it's worth pursuing that. So I can present in more detail at another time. So are there any questions or comments on the I-85 project?
Any questions, comments from anyone? We're all looking forward to winding down and finishing the water plant project and getting started on the I-85 project.
Exactly.
Sir.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Sir, so the next update is for the wastewater treatment plant digester repair project. So everyone is familiar with this one, replacing the laterals and headers and aerators in the digester tanks 3 and 4. So digesters, both 3 and 4, construction has been complete and currently in operation from our staff. The 4 valves on the airlines, all 4 valves were replaced as a change order and paid for with the contingency funds approved by the board. And the last component, we're waiting on pressure and temperature gauges, just a very small piece of the project. waiting for those to be installed. But some of the fittings that are required are, I think we've gotten 4 of the 6 that we needed. We're waiting on 2 final fittings to show up, and as soon as they're delivered, the project will be closed out. I talked to the contractor yesterday. He thought that we would have those installed within 2 weeks. So next slide. And
So then we'll drain tanks 1 and 2 and see how bad they are.
that's the plan. I haven't coordinated that yet with our superintendent at the wastewater plant, but that is on the list. We do want to drop those tanks as soon as we can. And I anticipate that the condition of 1 and 2 will be just like 3 and 4 before we do that.
Hopefully that price won't go up too high since it's only been a year.
Let's hope. Any other questions on the digester? Okay. Next project is the hydraulic water model. So the project scope here is to create a water model for the Sawassa distribution system with a emphasis on the area east of I-85, including primarily city of Creedmoor. And the results of this water model will aid in developing a capital improvement projects to make repairs to identified water quality deficiencies. Next slide. So the project status. Approval was obtained in September, October through December. We worked with our consultant on data acquisition. November through January, we have been in development of the preliminary water model and identified hydrants that require flow testing. I know Commissioner Wade, we discussed at the last meeting getting hydrant data. I have not done that yet, but I still need to reach out to you and get that information.
Especially if you, whatever hydrant you specifically want.
Yes, sir. So the consultant has given me a list now of the hydrants that we would like to test. So February and March, we want to refine the model and perform that selective fire hydrant testing. But as I mentioned last time, that is weather dependent. We do not want to float hydrants in cold, freezing temperatures. So we need a stretch of warm weather to schedule those. So April, we look to complete the final model calibration. May, we'll run multiple scenarios and have the submission of a draft report. And in June, we look to have the final report from our consultant and be able to present that to the board. So are there any questions on the hydraulic water model?
Any questions, comments? Okay.
Slide. So the AIA grant application, the project scope here, we submitted an application for a $150,000 grant to perform an asset inventory assessment on our distribution system. The director sent out an email today giving you an update on that, but we did find out that we were not selected to receive that grant. There were 124 applications submitted to DEQ for that, and they awarded grants to 25 of those. I don't really have any other details on the selection criteria or why we were not selected, but we will look into that further. But I already am planning now in the fall to submit an application for both the water and the sewer. So I would like to submit for a $150,000 grant for water for the same thing we just requested, but also an AIA grant for the sewer. I would like to do an assessment on all of our lift stations, and I think that's the good use of some of the collection system AIA money. So we got turned down for 150 here, so we'll try for 300 in the fall. So
We'll go home.
go big or go home. Any questions on the AIA? Next slide. I believe that. Oh, one more, sorry. Remote site monitoring system. So project scope here. We currently operate 47 sanitary sewer lift stations, 5 booster stations, and 7 water towers. All of those are monitored with historically has been 2 separate monitoring services. One of those services was using some outdated hardware that was 2G and 3G technology. That technology was scheduled to go offline early this year. So we needed to make a change and upgrade at least that hardware, but we made a decision to upgrade everything to one service provider using current LTE technology. And that service, we wanted to seek a service that would allow us to have real-time alarm monitoring from our computers and cell phones that would help our staff in the maintenance and operation of our facilities. So next slide. So the project status, October, November, we issued the RFPs and held a bid opening in December. The board approved the award of the contract to Data Command. Early January, we met with Data Command staff and visited the different lift stations to confirm the hardware needed to perform those upgrades. Mid-January, we began installation of the alarm monitoring at the 31 sites with the obsolete system. And by the end of January, all of those sites weren't upgraded. So as of today, we have 3 separate service providers, but in February, we are, I think next week, they're planning to come back and work on installation of the remaining hardware, which will put our entire network or all of our remote sites on the one service. So that contract is scheduled to be complete by the end of February. So next slide. What you see here is just a basic graphic output from the Data Command system. This is just the initial setup. We're going to work with this, refine it, make it a little bit, maybe dress it up, get it a little bit more like we may want. But this kind of shows you what we can see at any time on real-time data. This was a screenshot from the STEM main lift station. Pump 2 is green there. That shows that pump 2 was running at that time. So our staff at any time can see which pumps are running. If the generator was running, that would light up. We would be able to see that. We can also see information on run times, on our number of starts on our pumps to see if we have any issues there. If you have one pump that's running a lot more than another, then you have an efficiency problem on a pump. So this is just giving us a lot of information that we can really plan for future upgrades and provide better service to those lift stations. So next slide. That's the last one I have here. So any questions on the remote monitoring project?
So did we pay service to the other 2 remote monitoring companies, the companies that do our monitoring before?
Yes, we had to pay there was a monthly fee per site.
So will the new one be less than what the old ones were? I know it's going to be newer, so it might be more expensive. That's my
I believe that I don't have those numbers, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. I think it may be, there's some things that are going to be taken offline. When those things come offline, I think it may be actually saving us a little bit of money.
So there's 3 monitors right now because the new one's installed. The other 2 are still working because the new one's not gone yet.
And by the end of February, we'll have all the sites on the Data Command system, and those other 2 can go offline.
Mark, may I just make a comment too? I think in the legislative memo regarding this project, we were pretty even dollar wise in terms of our monthly monitoring service. One of the things that we did discover through the implementation of this project is that we had on several sites some leased lines, phone lines. You may be aware of what a leased line means. It's kind of a dedicated phone line for our communication systems between some of our pumps and some of our towers. There's a monthly fee for that as well. And Mark did the research on that because you do not need those leased lines any longer. We have quite a few of them out there. So with the technology we have now with the cell phone technology, our monthly price, we're actually at a savings, if you will, with this changeover in this program, with the increased technology. And I'd like to also add that we have greater transparency now into monitoring all of these systems in the SCADA screens that we have. So you see one example of a screen in front of you for one specific pump station, but we can actually have overviews for the entire town of Stem or Butner or Creedmoor at the same time. And we can see a screen that says what's good, what's bad, what's not so good for us. And we also have about 8 users, maybe 6 to 8 users now. And we all have the pleasure of getting texts and emails 24/7. So I have to talk to Mark about that just to get me off that list or a little bit lower down on the list, please, Mark, from that. But we get to ask a lot of questions now and say, why is this running like this? What's going on here? What do we replace there? So it's a great system upgrade for us. Thank you.
I love the screen. I can understand it.
Yeah, those telephone lines, that's really old technology.
I believe we identified 3 lease lines.
Okay,
I think we'll be able to eliminate with this project.
good.
I believe that is all of the other project categories. So if there are any other questions on any of the items we discussed, I'll be glad to take those.
Questions, comments?
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you. And now we go to item number 14, our comments from our executive director, Mr. Schroyer.
Mr. Chair, thank you, board. I want to thank Richard and Mark for their presentations this evening. I'll make it short and sweet. Nothing more really to add to this board meeting this evening. We do have finance committee meetings set up and scheduled next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. And those are actually on site. Those are not video presentations for Zoom meetings. We do have information posted out there on the calendar. I'll be publishing agenda with some more information coming up on those in the next couple of days. So just want to point that out. Those finance committee meetings are actually for our draft FY 22-23 operating budget, which is kind of challenging to say, thinking that far ahead, but that's what those are for. And we do have a budget schedule, which we presented to the board previously with the target of having our public hearing, I believe, in April. Is that correct, Richard? With our first board view, if you will, in May, or excuse me, with a board approval potentially in May, with June board meeting as a backup, because we need to get this budget approved before the fiscal year begins July 1st. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And comments from our attorney, Mr. Wren, you got any comments for us?
I have one matter for executive session for attorney-client privilege.
Okay, and that concludes everything on our agenda except for board member comments, and we'll have those after our closed session. Do I hear a motion to adjourn to a closed session?
To adjourn to a closed session.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Let's take at least a 5-minute break. So I can get up and move around. Get my legs.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we are back in open session. Thank you.
Thank you. We're back in open session and I'm going to throw this to our executive director with some comments.
Again, Mr. Chair, no further comments than previous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, comments from our board members. Mr. McKellar, you have any-
Nothing tonight.
nothing tonight? Mr. Way.
I just want to say I appreciate the work's been put in by our operational staff out in the field for all the leaks and water main breaks that we've had during the extremely cold temperatures. I know it's been very tireless effort on their parts, and we appreciate their work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McLam.
Mr. Ballmer and Mark did a wonderful presentation tonight. So thank you for everything you do. I don't get to hear a whole lot of thank yous, and Scott, thank you for everything you do.
Mr. Karen.
No report.
No report. Ms. Jordan.
No report.
Ms. Kaczynski.
I want to echo Mr. Way and Mr. McLam's sentiments. The reporting was wonderful tonight. It's good to know we're on track with the water plant as usual. And thank you for all the hard work and especially for the people that have worked so tirelessly out in the cold on these water main breaks in the middle of the night while I was fast asleep
In your warm house.
in my warm house.
Thank you. Thank you. And as for me, I want to thank you all for giving me another term as chair. I appreciate you doing that. And I like to thank Scott, Richard, and Mark for all of the work that they put in and all of the Saguasa staff. Every employee, we want to thank them, especially the ones that are out at night. And also I'd like to thank our attorney, Mr. Wren, for keeping us on track and giving us the best advice possible. Thank you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say bye. Bye. All those opposed say stay. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Okay.